morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to slightly repeat some of what Ed said here in terms of thank you for coming out, thank you for being here, thank you for being interested in Amazon. And just full disclosure, my first Revo Conference, if you didn't see me yesterday, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've just learned so much. And every time I talk about Amazon to audiences, I'm very aware of what the audience themselves are trying to get out of it, and it being my first Revo Conference, my first exposure to the retail real estate industry, I do think that there is a lot that we can all learn, all the stakeholders in this room and taking part in this event can learn from Amazon, even though when people tend to ask me about Amazon, they're asking about the retail side. But I think the learnings that the entire retail industry and all stakeholders involved in it can take from what Amazon has done well can give you some guidance and hopefully support you in building strategies that focus on what Amazon can't do well. So as Ed explained, I've argued with Kogan Page till I was blue in the face about this title. But actually, if you think about it, if you were to Google the book about Amazon on Google or Amazon, you wouldn't find it very well. So I often say, if you are interested in looking up this book afterwards, just say Amazon Relentless Retailer, which is what they are. So we're here to talk about what Amazon can't do, but in order to do that, I need to take you right back to the beginning of what Amazon calls day one. It's when it was founded, what the strategic goals were, to see if they align with yours, and then talk about how they've done that, how they've achieved the stellar growth that they have, upturning industries, disrupting legacy, traditional established retailers, and then we'll abstract how they've done that out of what they've done to come up with the Amazon effect, and that's the bit that really affects all of you guys in terms of that's the yardstick, that's the benchmark that you're now having to plan towards, to execute, to deliver on. And hopefully, out of those three sections, you'll have a much clearer idea of what Amazon can't do. I'm sure you already have some good ideas. I know I certainly do, as well as both as a consumer as well as an analyst. But why Amazon? Why did I write the book about Amazon? Why am I here talking to you about it? Because I don't own retail property, I can't cut code, and while I have worked in Iceland as a store associate, I've never run a retailer. But I have written about technology for about 20 years, specifically focused on enterprise technology that retailers use. And I remember when I first started out, trying to use a 56K dial-up modem to access Sainsbury's virtual shelves. I don't know if anyone remembers that. So the digital experience within retail has always been quite close to my heart. It's been core to my professional career. And about 2 years ago, I was asked by my co-author, Natalie Berg, to help her write a book about why Amazon's become as successful as it has. Bit of background on that. So having been a journalist and editing Retail Technology magazine, I worked with Natalie at a retail market research firm called Planet Retail. I was at IDC before that, so I've done tech looking at retail and retail looking at tech. And we got the commission from Kogan Page through the week before Amazon announced it bought Whole Foods. So when that happened, we thought, ooh, we're probably onto something here. And the reason why we decided to write about Amazon, because in my consultancy role in the research firm Planet Retail, Amazon was the gorilla in the room. I consulted and still do consult with some large tier one global retailers and some large tier one global brands. And they all wanted to know, what about Amazon? What about voice on Amazon? What about Amazon search? Everything was about how to beat Amazon. So they're not your average retailer. To go from 91st in the world rankings by sales about 20 years ago to 4th in the world today is a pretty stellar growth curve, and I just want to take you through how it got there. So on day one, as our venerable leader of Amazon, Jeff Bezos, likes to term it, was a key moment, there's Jeff. Literally, there is Jeff on day one in his little garage, Silicon Valley archetypal startup garage, thinking, I want to make some money, I want to sell to consumers. And there's this little thing called the internet. It sounds really, really clever. And I want to show that this selling on the internet business is easy. How do I do that? I know. Let's use something that's really easy to sell. Books. They're easy to ship, size, weight, predictable. And also, us as consumers, we kind of know what we're getting when we order a book. All we need to see is the book cover, and all that furniture that goes on the book cover can be reproduced on the web page. So I can ship them easily, but I need a website. I need something for consumers to access this. And actually I couldn't find a picture of the original Amazon web page big enough to fill a screen. That's as small as I could get it, so it's still legible. But that was what the website first looked like when it launched. Just to ram that home, books was really convenient for Amazon. Amazon famously holds on to its executives for a very, very long time. This quote was taken from Werner Vogels, their CTO, who's been their CTO since the beginning, but he said this in 2016. Amazon may be a retailer, but it's a tech company at heart. And Jeff didn't start Amazon to sell books or to be a bookshop. And this is my first most important point to take away about Amazon. Amazon started with the means to sell. It didn't really know what it wanted to sell. So it's actually a tech company first and a retailer second. Let's look at how it got to where it was. So in 1994, bearing in mind this means this is Amazon's 25th year, which means it's also at a massive inflection point. This is the number of average daily hits Amazon declared in its 1995 IPO documentation that it got in 1 month. According to SimilarWeb, the traffic tracker, first 6 months, or 6 months up to March 2019, Amazon attracted 2.2 billion hits in 6 months. That's how far it's come in 25 years. So how does it do that? How's it got there? What can Amazon do really, really well? It can sell you anything. In fact, it can sell you everything. I would highly recommend a book, the best-selling book on Amazon, which is called The Everything Store, which dissects Amazon from a cultural standpoint. Whereas I would say our Relentless Retailer book really dissects it from a business management perspective, looks at the strategy, looks at the how and the what, rather than the who of Amazon. But that is literally what Amazon has become known as, the everything store. And I can say that with surety because what they focused on is the how, not the what. How have they done that? So there's a concept that's developed called the Amazon flywheel, and I reference the everything store because the flywheel concept was first expanded on in the everything store. And this is the diagram that describes Amazon's flywheel. So if you think about, for the engineers of us in the audience, the flywheel that creates that centrifugal force and sucks more and more and more energy into the middle. In this flywheel, you have the marketplace that Amazon has ended up creating, which attracts the sellers, which gives us as consumers the choice. And when you add in all the technology they've developed to lower their cost structure, pitting sellers against each other leads to lower prices, which, combined with the amount of choice you can have on Amazon, improves the customer experience. Better customer experience, more customers come, the traffic increases, and so we continue. There are some key components in the Amazon ecosystem that drive this flywheel. Of course, I mentioned the sellers, Amazon.com. That's the first thing we all knew about Amazon, came to know Amazon from. Then we started to understand that they had a shed load of tech behind the scenes to deliver this stuff. Then they introduced Prime. And that, to me, in my humble opinion, was the killer stroke, because that was the structure that gave them the information about us that they needed to have in order to give us more of what we wanted. And then they started to add more stuff into Prime. Video, now, 1 hour delivery, making it almost, as Jeff has actually said, irresponsible not to be a Prime customer. So let's break down that flywheel and see how it's done what it does. So this is Amazon Web Services. This is the lower cost structure that they've introduced by basically running it, building it, developing it themselves. The figures you can see here are the top figure, percentage of cloud service infrastructure services globally, market share, 64%. Oh, sorry, I've got them mixed up. Apologies. Amazon actually has 64% of the world's, runs 64% of the world's internet traffic, far more important. The second figure is its market share of cloud infrastructure services, which it sells to Netflix, the US government, as I said, running 64% of the world's internet traffic. But the key thing that people, particularly retailers and retail property owners, potentially don't know, is that 100% of Amazon's 2018 operating profit came from AWS. It's another reason why it's a tech company first and a retailer second. The dirty little secret is that Amazon doesn't make any money as a retailer. That might change. The shareholders are becoming more impatient, and you can see them tweaking their pricing algorithms to push consumers towards slightly more profitable purchases. But this is really the heart of Amazon. How that then supports Amazon.com, some interesting figures I've taken from my time at Planet Retail, still relevant, I think still accurate, about its global general merchandise value in US billions. And you can see that with that cost structure, with that technology base, they are drawing more and more sellers onto their marketplace. And Natalie and I predict in our book that Amazon is going to derive over 50% of its revenues from services in the next 5 to 10 years, and that 50% is going to grow exponentially. Amazon, even though you might have heard of their ambitions in private label and other specific retail areas, their sellers, their customers are going to, and their sellers' customers rather, are going to drive a lot of their growth. And you can see the blue section at the bottom, interestingly, is our prediction for their store-based growth, which we will come on to. So you've got the 3P marketplace, the pure play, their own revenues, and the store-based growth. They're all growing, which is quite a scary thought. But there you can see that by 2022, we're talking about nearly $500 billion in revenue. And here's a snapshot, terribly out of date. It would be out of date even if I'd updated it last week, of that ecosystem, what that flywheel represents. You can see that in order to make Prime more attractive, in order to leverage and maximize the capabilities of its infrastructure, it has built out a vast ecosystem into areas that are adjacent to and completely diametrically opposed to retail. I think the most recent and interesting development has been into display ads. I think the rule of thumb with Amazon, when it's building an ecosystem like this, is that it always goes for areas that are ripe for disruption. And in doing so, it always tries to engage with the customer in a way that creates a virtuous feedback loop. So that when they invest in healthcare, they find out what's wrong with healthcare, they will exhaustively work on their model for disrupting healthcare until they take it to market. And that's when we all go, oh, what are we going to do? And then they will make sure that they get that they are collecting and analyzing the customer data that they get out of their venture in order to iteratively improve it. But you can see here, I think healthcare is the one that I haven't got on here. But the ads business is also absolutely huge, will be absolutely huge. So, kind of know a little bit more about how Amazon got to where it did, why it's doing what it's doing, and how it's doing it. What does that mean for you guys? Well, this quote, I think, from Jeff 2 years ago really sums it up. And if it's one thing that you want to take away into your own businesses to kind of steal a bit of the Amazon smarts, I would suggest that even when your customers don't know that they want something better, you have to have the desire to delight your customers, and that will drive you to invent on their behalf. None of us knew that we wanted, I don't know if you do want Amazon Go stores, but then we think, actually, I might be diametrically opposed to Amazon, I might not necessarily want the convenience grocery experience, but actually, tell me I can just pick something off the shelf and walk out with it. That's not a bad idea. That's a disruptive idea. And they're not afraid to take that thinking and apply it to absolutely every area of their business. So I just pulled together a few snapshots of some of their innovative areas of development to underline the fact that I don't have the 2018 figures, but I know in 2017 they spent $24 billion on R&D, more than any other US company. And it's another reason why I say to retailers, don't try and compete with Amazon. Amazon's a tech company. If you want to be a tech company, and you can spend $24 billion and have really patient shareholders on R&D, great. But actually, retailers have to work the other way around. So what I suggest is that retailers, who are actually very good at this anyway, fast follow Amazon and look at what Amazon does and how the market reacts, and specifically how consumers react to what Amazon is offering them, and then fast follow to take the best of what Amazon is spending their R&D bucks on and apply it to your own business. So of course we know about the drones, we know about faster and faster pickup, which has really disrupted the grocery industry, pushing people like Sainsbury's to launch a very short-lived checkout-free trial in one of its Holborn stores recently. I'd like to point out as well, Amazon's plowing a huge amount of money into the last mile. It's the main reason it's not profitable, as I'm sure many of the retailers in the room know, and maybe have put pressure on their retail property owners to help them facilitate in terms of click and collect in their stores, because that brings down the cost of delivering split pallets and individual items by delivery, home delivery. So you've got Prime Air. They've got a massive grant from the US government to open 2 of their own air freight transport hubs in America. They're experimenting with robots, home delivery robots there at the bottom right as you're looking at it. Starship Robots is another one that's actually done a lot more work on that, and actually into commercial trials. You might see them being gently minded by somebody as they trundle along the street in trial. But you can see that their innovation is focused on bringing the cost of ownership of some of the services it offers us down. So you've got the Ring doorbell there, bottom middle, which is essentially to try and mitigate the cost of missed deliveries. And really interestingly, when it comes to the intersection between Amazon online and moving to offline and what that impact will have on your stores, bottom left, you've got the Amazon Echo Look device. I think grocers and fashion retailers have, up till now, been quite well insulated from Amazon and its ambitions. But certainly the grocers woke up with Amazon Go, and I think this Echo Look device should really sound a warning sign for fashion retailers, because its ambitions in fashion are well known, and building on its voice assistant hardware device business, it's actually brought in a camera that takes pictures of you and then uses that image to show you personalized wardrobe options. So it's actually trying to take more and more of that immersive experience that you get in the store, try before you buy, and merging it with its recommendations, algorithms, in order to try and get to convert you online when it comes to clothing rather than in a store. And some of their other innovations that you are still having to work through what they mean in your business. Of course, Prime Day is absolutely huge. Can't mention Prime without mentioning the fact that it's become a proxy for loyalty. Traditional brick-and-mortar retailers have had to use loyalty to get you and I to identify ourselves at the point of sale and tie that sale back to our identity. That way they know what we bought, when we bought it, possibly then can infer why in order to give us more of what we want. When we do business with any online company, we give them our delivery address, we give them certain little digital breadcrumbs that they can infer more about us. Prime sucks us in, and it gives them that constant flow of digital information about us that they can then use to analyze and iteratively improve the offer that they give us. I think we see the same thing with Alibaba and Tmall in China. Famously, their 2017 Singles Day served up 6.8 billion personalized homepages based on who you were, what device you used, whether or not you were a previous Alibaba customer, and if you were, what your preferences and purchase habits were. So Prime allows them to know who their customers are. It pushes the immediate gratification that we've become very, very used to in terms of one-day delivery. You all have had to deal with one-click checkout if you have an online transactional presence, which they patented. There's Amazon Go in the bottom. Subscribe and save. So if you don't want to sign up to Prime, you can still get those household items which are potentially involve more friction. When you go to the grocery store, you park, you queue, you pick up your toilet paper, it's bulky, et cetera, Subscribe and Save has tackled that little bit of friction, and then bringing us on to Whole Foods. 40% of everything, of our retail spending is food. It's 40% of global retail sales. And so if Amazon doesn't get into food, it doesn't see what we're doing with 40% of our money. If it doesn't get into food, this is where it starts hopefully getting more positive for retail property owners. It doesn't see what happens 90% of the time with sales. That's because even though it's predicted, e-commerce sales are predicted to continue to grow and eat into and cannibalize store-based sales, even if you order something online, I've mentioned the economies of scale as regards the last mile, you are more and more incentivized to click and collect. And because of that, we can still say 90% of all retail sales are still completed in a store. Amazon knows this. Amazon also knows that it doesn't have the appetite all the time to build a grocer greenfield. So it bought Whole Foods. And I think that was 2017, and when I speak to people about it, they're like, well, it's taken a long time, hasn't it? But Amazon is not afraid to wait, to be patient. It's trained its shareholders to be patient. So we're waiting to see what happens. We're seeing some small changes there. But that, to me, is the real reason why it bought Whole Foods. It needs to get into grocery. It needs to know what we do when we buy food, and it needs to know what we do when we shop offline. And to sort of sobering thought, to bring all this together, I was at a retail technology show called NRF that takes place in New York every year. And Deloitte issues its global retailing report every year, and so it had 2017 figures, 2017 figures that it released in January 2019. And you can see there that Amazon is number 4. The thing that really struck me, though, so the top 3 haven't changed year on year in terms of their position. And this is, sorry, I should explain, global retail sales. Because by capitalization, Amazon's already bigger than Walmart. But in terms of retail sales, it's 4th. But the thing that really, really, really scared me was the fact that it was the only retailer last year to record double-digit growth. The only one. That growth was 25.6%. If it grows at the same rate last year, or in this year's figures, it will now be number 2. So Amazon is something you can't ignore, and there are a huge number of really, really useful strategic hints and tips to take away from how it's got to where it has. It's taught us that speed and convenience as consumers are almost as important as price. It's taught us that choice should be limitless, but that everything you're shown should be relevant. And the internet generally has increased the amount of transparency and demand for provenance that customers are looking for. But this is where I start to seg into what Amazon can't do. I've heard differing approaches to this. I say that around 60% of sales are digitally influenced right now. Some people say 90% of sales are digitally influenced. But the IMRG, our UK e-commerce retailer members organisation, has recently predicted that online sales are going to top out at about 40% by 2023. That is exponential growth. It's currently about 24%. And as I said, there are still 90% of sales completed in a store. So this is a huge, huge advantage that current legacy high street retailers and property owners have over Amazon. And when you can see how long it's taken Amazon just to get to grips with Whole Foods and just to get to grips with bringing out Amazon Go, which is incidentally really, really expensive from a technology standpoint, which is why I don't think they've been able to scale it as quickly as they can, and which is why they only concentrate on small footprints and the higher margin convenience business. But it means that you guys have an opportunity to marry the best of online with the best of physical as regards search and discovery. Yes, Amazon is the world's most popular shopping search engine, but Google has been working really, really, really hard to improve its search engine results pages, and I would thoroughly recommend that you make sure that your location in the physical world is accurately represented digitally so that consumers can find you. These are some stats that Google has released. They've seen a 900% increase in near me, tonight, or today searches. They've seen an 80% increase in mobile searches for best. So I'm actually on the high street, I'm going, where's the best of this? Are you there to let them know? Come and see me. I also think reverse image search is a hugely important technology development for marrying online and offline. I might see your shirt and go, that's fantastic, take a picture of it. And then Google, depending on how well your search engine optimization works, can say, this shirt's just down the road. Why not buy it? So we really need to think more about exploiting that online to offline capability and bringing in some of the expectations that Amazon has helped set online into the store. When you think about it, it's not just being there to capture at the point of discovery, browsing, but it's also converting that into a sale. I mean, 76% of local near-me searches actually result in a same-day store visit. Again, Google search engine results. And because they work with so many merchants on things like live inventory or Google Shopping, they're also able to confirm that 26% of those visits actually result in a purchase. And I wanted to highlight here Zara's, again, short trial of Click and Collect, a standalone Click and Collect store in Westfield. Because the thing that my little bugbear as a consumer is that retailers are learning from Amazon, learning that Click and Collect is really, really important, but that most people go and Click and Collect their goods at lunchtime. And sometimes you can walk into a store and the Click and Collect counter queue is longer than the cashier's queue. And you think, well, I could have just come in and picked it up off the shelf and bought it if I'd had live availability on your inventory. So there's a lot of moving parts to pull together. And finally, this really focuses minds on what the store of the future should look like. The store of the future shouldn't have to make you choose between the online experience and the offline experience. All that's good about digital in the shopping world that we have embraced as consumers, we need to try and bring into the store. And I highlight, I think another speaker did the same, Maureen Hinton, yesterday, also highlighted Alibaba and its Fresh Hippo stores in China as the gold standard because it's food, because it's grocery, everything's done through your mobile. I'm not a great advocate of the fact that you would come into your Amazon Go store, scan your phone, and put it away. In the Alibaba stores, the Fresh Hippo stores, everything you scan via QR code. It gives you provenance, product information, ingredient information, recipe information. Little bags on conveyor belts circulate above you, managing click and collect orders and home delivery orders. And I heard the CEO of Fresh Hippo speak at the beginning of this year, and there were audible gasps from the mainly American retailers that were in the room. And that's that 60% of their online orders for click and collect and home delivery come from within a 5-mile radius of the store. They don't spend money on digital customer acquisition. Their digital customers are local to them. They don't have to acquire them because the customers know that the Fresh Hippo store is already there. It also reduces last-mile delivery costs, and it creates a halo effect. And again, just to reiterate that in China, 80% of mobile searches are for best. So what Amazon can't do, to round up, I would say retailers need to focus on how they sell what they sell. I'm a fashion retailer. I've been selling fashion for ages. Great. I love your clothes, but I hate trying to buy them from you. Understand who you're selling to. Amazon has become rich on customer data. I would contend that retailers are drowning in customer data, but not actually doing very much with it. In my current job at Eagle Eye, which is a digital software firm, we advocate data leading to insight, data leading to insight via analysis, leading to learning. The DIAL methodology, which was actually first codified by dunnhumby when they launched the Tesco Club Card. To understand who you're selling to. And the other point is that we've recently done some research that shows, I've done this research many times over for many clients, what influences a customer to buy from you? Price is always the top thing, and you actually have to draw out price, throw that out before you can get any differentiation in the others. But the last time I did this was end of last year. 93% of consumers said price. No surprises there. But I was really shocked to find that 87% of consumers said the second most important thing were offers and rewards and promotions. So if you can't beat your competitor on price, at least make it seem as though you are by offering a discount. But the third and most important one, which was only a couple of percentage points, 85% behind that, was recognize me. If I come into your store every single day or once a week, I expect to be treated better than an anonymous cash-paying customer. And if I shop with you online, then, I really want you to recognize me because I'm a loyal customer. I'm one of the 20% that converts to 80% of your sales. So you really need to understand who you are selling to. And given that Amazon is the everything store, what I'm seeing are those online and brick-and-mortar retailers that have laser focus on a specific audience, a specific target customer doing really, really well. Update when and where you sell. So think about best, think about immediacy, think about near me. Think about bridging that gap from offline to online by making sure that your products are available digitally to be browsed, searched, and discovered. And finally, refine what you sell. Don't try and sell everything to everybody, because Amazon's kind of got that sewn up. Be really, really, really conscious of who your customer is. Use that data that we as consumers already leave for you, volunteer to you, as our Shop Appy representative yesterday said, they don't even ask us for this data. It might come to the day when retailers have to pay for our data. So really use what you're learning from customers digitally to refine what you sell physically. With that, thank you very much. I should say, I'll be around for Q&A afterwards. I'm in a panel. I'm around all day, so if there are any questions, please do stop me. Thank you.